Can I tell you something? Come here. I'm holding an event the day before 8/28, a week from Friday, 8/27. I'm doing this Restoring Honor thing at the Lincoln Memorial on next Saturday. But at the Kennedy Center the night before, I'm doing this thing with a whole bunch of rabbis and preachers and priests and everybody else. And what we're doing is we're giving this, they're giving speeches or sermons that were actually given at the time of the American Revolution. And then they're gonna put it in today's context. It's going to be great. Well, my wife and I, we wrote the check to rent out the Kennedy Center, and we're giving all of the tickets away for free because I don't want to profit on that. No, that would be wrong. Well, last week I get a call from the Kennedy Center. They call up and they say, Glenn Beck, and I'm like, yes, you can't, is this going to be prayer there? I'm like, yeah, we're going to start with prayer. We're going to also say the Pledge of Allegiance, too. They went crazy. You can't pray in a building that receives tax dollars. We're the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. And I'm like, oh, sue me. So after being in my basement, clinging to my .45 caliber Sig Sauer, I decided, we're going to pray anyway. Yeah. So that's what we told them. And Kennedy Center, arrest me. Because we're going to pray before, during, after, maybe spontaneously. We might even sing a few prayers, just because it really will agonize you. So let's see what we have. In America, we have the president making sure that you can build a mosque that's in poor taste, lecturing us about the Constitution. But at the same time, I'm told you shouldn't pray at the Kennedy Center. In fact, they told me at first I couldn't, but then I think they remembered who I was. And they knew it wouldn't end well for them. Then we have a group of Christian students that found in May that they can't discreetly pray on the steps of the United States Supreme Court building. On the steps, they can't do it. Their prayer was abruptly cut short as they were ordered to stop praying on the grounds. Is that, Mr. President, in step with regular America? Is that America? Is that in step with the Constitution? Is that in step with, what did you say about Muslims? Oh yeah, that people have a right to practice their religion just as anyone else in this country. How do those thoughts line up, Mr. President? Who is it, honestly, who is threatened by people praying outside of a courthouse? I don't care what religion. Who is that hurting? Who walks by like, oh my gosh, I'm so offended, I'm scarred for life? How does that happen? By the way, they were praying for the Supreme Court and the decisions they need to make, and also praying for our congressman who in Washington thinks that's a bad idea. Especially religious zealot like Nancy Pelosi, you know, from San Francisco. She was just telling us not long ago about her favorite word. Here it is.
My favorite word is the word. Is the word.
It is.
And that is everything. It says it all for us. And you know the biblical reference, you know the gospel reference of the word. And that word is, we have to give voice to what that means, the word. Isn't it a beautiful word when you think of it? It just covers everything. Word. Fill it in with anything you want, but of course we know it means the word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us.
She seemed so sincere there. Now, surely a Christian warrior like Nancy Pelosi would appreciate extra prayers, right, Nance? So what sounds more American? A group of people praying for our leaders, or the feds coming in saying no prayer? In regards to prayer, which one is more American? The president was silent on all of these things, but when a mosque was going up next to Ground Zero, he springs into action, tosses his hat right into the ring. Who is this president in step with? I mean, besides Hamas. I know he sternly referenced the Constitution and our founders, but does he even really understand our founders? Has he read, I don't know, what we used to call a book about the founders? Thomas Jefferson, do you think he discouraged public prayer? Come on, Mr. President, call me up. Did he? All of the progressives tonight, I just want you to know, Thomas Jefferson was the third president of the United States. He was the principal author of something called the Declaration of Independence. It's a very big document. They had very large notepads. Hard to go to school those days. This is the actual document. People will be like, he's got the actual document, he's just throwing it around. Shh, shh. I'm going to Washington next week. I'm switching it. All right. Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson. He wrote it. He knew a little something about freedom and religion. Now, here's something you probably never heard before. Did you know that this building, do you even recognize it? That was the Capitol building. Do you know that on Sundays it served as a church gathering place? Yeah. Believe it or not, the most regular attendee you'll never guess. He had a designated seat there just for him. Thomas Jefferson. He wouldn't even let the rough weather keep him from missing service. He was so dedicated that he'd get on horseback and ride in the driving rain so he could get there. So it stands to reason that he wouldn't have trotted over. You know, the guy who wrote this would have trotted over to the students praying on the steps of the courthouse, if the courthouse had been there, and tell them to stop before they offended anybody. And he would have done it not just because it would have made him late for the church service he was attending inside the Capitol building. I don't know anybody who's offended by prayer. I don't know anybody who's offended by all of this stuff. You know, I started at glennbeck.com, 15-minute spiritual thought of the day. It's not just for Christians or anybody else. It's just, today I had a rabbi on, Rabbi Lapin. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. He's brilliant. Brilliant. Well, how did you pray with him? He's Jewish. I know. You know, we have a lot more in common. People of faith have got to start standing together. I don't know how people can feel so threatened by faith. I really don't. I hate to tell you. When we need help, we all call to the same guy. You can put your hands over your ears and say, la, 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 but you know what? It's not going to change reality. There are things that need to be said. Things that need to be said. One of them is, we really been it. You know what I'm saying? We should call him. He's doing what I do every day. He's like, they don't call me. They don't call me.